Hello and welcome to 70 Years, 70 Muppets, More Muppets Please, a Muppet fan podcast presented by Tubfix.com. This is the podcast where we celebrate the Muppets' 70th anniversary with a series of spotlights on our favorite Muppet characters, from fan favorites to the most obscure. I am this week's host, Joe Hennis, and the Muppets of the week are Clive Cahuenga and Gary Cahuenga. Clive was performed by Richard Hunt, making his debut in 1978, and Gary was performed by Dave Goelz, designed by Eric Engelhardt, and making his debut in 1997. When we launched this podcast season, we wanted to give some props to Muppet characters who didn't quite make the cut in Disney's original Top 70 list. Omissions like Clifford or Louis Kazagger demanded to be covered, but this was also an opportunity to show a little love to the least known characters as well. What is it about these Muppets with only a handful or fewer of appearances that tickles us so much? There are a million reasons, including the opportunity for single joke characters, weird puppet designs, and building out the larger universe of Muppet characters. Two of these guys have long been favorites of mine, and they just so happen to share the same surname, Cahuenga. God, that's fun to say. Say it with me, Cahuenga. The first of these two Cahuengas to appear was Clive Cahuenga, the singing civil servant from the Danny Kaye episode of The Muppet Show. He's a geeky-looking guy wearing a suit and tie, sporting glasses and a mustache. He'd look at home working at a desk at the IRS. He exists for a single reason, and that's to showcase the types of bizarre acts that appear on the Muppet Show stage when we're busy watching the action backstage. In Clive's case, he sings the Municipal Vermin Abatement Code to the tune of Mozart.
Section 1, rats, subheading infestation, rodent populations in an urban area.
And that's it. That's his entire appearance, just a few seconds of a song, and then we're off to watch Danny Kaye sing a song about math to a worm. So rather than blather on about what I love about Clive Cahuenga, I'm going to take a page from his book, which, by the way, his book contains a lot of dull information about bugs. And I'm going to keep this part of the podcast understandably short. In the spirit of Clive, leave the people wanting more. The other Cahuenga in question is Gary Cahuenga, a living ventriloquist dummy found in a crate backstage at the studio of Muppets Tonight. So joining me to talk about this bizarre and mostly forgotten character is Gary's performer, the iconic Dave Goelz. Dave Goelz, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you about, of all characters, Gary Cahuenga.
Well, Joe, it's great to be here. I love what you guys do. I have to say it publicly. I'm grateful to you. I keep a low profile. I hide out when I'm not working, so you never hear from me on the site. But I love what you do, and I thank you for it. You've been just such a wonderful, wonderful sort of addendum to the Muppets all these years.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate hearing that from you. And, especially like us, we're such huge fans of yours and all of the work that you've done. And so just knowing that you're out there reading what we're doing, it means a lot. So thank you.
Well, it's good that somebody's watching. I like
it. Always. We will always watch what you're working on. So you probably get a lot of interviews talking about Gonzo and Bunsen and the Fraggle Rock characters, but I'm hoping this is your first interview just to talk specifically about Gary Cahuenga.
It's been the very first interview that Gary Cahuenga has been mentioned in.
Great. I'm honored.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
Let alone the subject of.
So what do you recall about the origins of Gary Cahuenga? Where did he come from?
Well, it was my idea, actually. When I was about 5, I loved puppets and I loved ventriloquist dummies. And so my parents would always tell me when one of those things was on TV. And at that time, they gave me a Howdy Doody dummy that had a string pull in the back of the neck. And, I loved my Howdy Doody dummy, but, my mom made a bathrobe for him so I could have my hand inside the bathrobe. You couldn't see me pulling the string in the back of the neck.
Sure.
And every time I went to a toy store, every single time, I looked to see if they had any dummies that had, a stick inside the body that controls it. That was magic to me. And I never got one. I think they made might have been a Charlie McCarthy that one of my friends had that worked like that. And so it never got fulfilled. And now I'm almost 80 years old, and every time I happen to be in a toy store, I look to see if they have any dummies with a stick inside. I mean, I really look to see if they have one. Now, to be clear, I have enough money I could even have one made by a
Right.
professional vent maker, right? Um, but I don't need one. I wouldn't even bother to do that. Uh, but I'm still obsessed.
So you never found one. You looked all these years,
No,
and the
never
handle was
found
always on the
one. But
outside.
the way that led into our work was that it was what were we shooting? Was it Muppets Tonight? Yeah, it was Muppets Tonight. And I said, well, what about this idea? Supposing the Muppets go down in the basement of the TV studio, and they find this crate in there, this carton, this fiber box, and open it up, and up sits a ventriloquist dummy. And he is thinking that it's 1956. He's going to go on the Ed Sullivan Show. But what happened was his ventriloquist got stage fright and never showed up. And he's been sitting there thinking, it's 1956, I'm going on. And so all of his references were 1956. He was talking about Elvis, Eisenhower. He knows all about all that stuff, but he has no idea what's going on now.
Right.
And I thought that was just a really good concept. And then so the writers did too, and they had him built, and he was built. Oh shoot, you'll know who he's built by. I'm forgetting the name right now, but we had a director on that series named Gary Halverson, and Steve Whitmire used to always say, "Well, Gary looks like a ventriloquist dummy." and make it look like that. So I mentioned it to the guys who were building him, and they did. He looks like Gary Halverson, and
Wow.
and of course he looks like a classic ventriloquist dummy. In fact, the best I've ever seen. And in fact, his mechanisms are the best I've ever seen in a vent dummy.
Tell me about those mechanisms. I wanted to ask you about that too. So obviously he's not a pull string in the back.
He's not a pull string in
Like,
the back of the neck. He can do so many things. He has eyes left, right. He has blinks that can be independent. He has eyebrows that are the geometry of them is just genius. They can move independently and they can make all kinds of expressions. They can look angry and they can look surprised just by the way they work. And I got to say that I guess Tom Newby and maybe Fred did the mechanisms. Fred Buckholz, I think, and I just can't remember the guy who was a puppet maker. He has died.
yeah, his name is Eric Engelhart.
There it is. Eric did an astounding job sculpting that thing so that you could have these eyebrows that worked through a single hole and make all kinds of expressions. It was the best I have ever seen. It was absolute genius. Eric was so good, and he sculpted the head as well. Anyway, they got this thing done. It was just so effective, but the head was very heavy because it had all this mechanism. And,
Sure.
and the way we set it up was I'm obviously not behind him, I'm underneath. So the stick that came out of the head, when it got into the chest, angled toward the camera at a slight downward angle. So I could hold it like this. He's looking to his, well, you'll have to cut
Yeah,
this
it's a
out.
podcast. Everyone
I'm
just
just
imagine
describing it to
you're
you.
holding your fist in front of your face.
But I'm
Yeah.
holding my fist inside his chest,
Yeah.
so I'm in there close to the head, and the hand grip that I'm holding has so many controls on it that I had to really study to try to remember what does what. It was like more than any vent dummy I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So it was also that the head weighed 7.5 pounds, so I couldn't hold him still. He would rock around, sort of like those bozo punching bag things,
Right. Yeah. It's kind of
the
weeble wobbling a
inflatable.
little bit.
Yeah, he just
Yeah.
wobbled. He pivoted on his feet, sort of, and I'm there working him, and he's just kind of. So that became a character thing. That
Yeah.
he
Right.
just sort of stands around. He's one of these guys who just kind of leans around and looks at everybody. And
Right. It's
and
it's not a bug, it's a feature.
oh yeah, we turned it into a feature, and because I couldn't keep him still. Anyway, it looks great because it's just you could tell he's kind of like a showman and kind of a guy who is sort of trying to be in charge of everything. And so he's rocking around. I used it to look at everybody who was around him, and it was so much fun. Um, and the costumes that were done, I think that might have been Polly Smith. You can check it
I would
out.
have to I would have to assume, yeah.
You are the one who would know.
Yeah.
But she got this amazing, like 50s fabric. That jacket is just luscious. I love that fabric. And it's just so rich and so suitable for him in that period, you know. Anyway, so we did him for a few times, and uh, he was just great fun. But then the show ended, and other things came up. We didn't use him, and so he's just been languishing.
What a shame to let him
Oh,
languish.
it is a shame. It is a shame
Yeah.
because there's so much you can do with him. Like I asked them to just make regular flat hands.
So that
So
was deliberate. His hands are like almost
yeah,
like a
he's
karate
they're
chop,
kind of like
flat.
little cast, little carved wooden hands, you know. So he
Right.
can't pick anything up.
Right.
He can't answer the phone or anything. He fumbles with everything. So he has to get help. Could you think this up for me? You know, and it was it was just another little limitation that he had built in that I loved, and it was intentional.
It almost makes it easier for you as a performer, where it's like, let someone else worry about picking up the phone. Like I'm just, but there's no cutting and then resetting with
Yeah,
something
yeah,
glued to his
right.
hand.
In a way, it's an asset.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like Doug the dog over at Pixar.
Right.
He
Yeah.
he has a little speaker on his neck, so you don't have to lip sync him.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
perfect. Yeah.
so it's actually much easier to produce.
Yes.
So, but yeah, this is just fun.
It seems like he was fun to perform. So I want to backtrack a little bit. So first of all, we were talking about how he's this character who's lost in time, but the Muppets have kind of gone back to that well several times, but I don't think they've ever really, at least in modern years, um, gone back quite as far as the 1950s. There's a lot of like the Muppets are out of time. They feel like it's 1976 or maybe the mid
Oh, okay.
80s.
So you associate them with that time.
I think the Muppets do. If you
Yeah.
look at some of the things that they've done, like the 2011 Jason Segel Muppet movie,
Uh,
where
yeah.
they're kind of like, well, we have to get back to where we were once great, and that was during this Muppet Show era, and
Yeah.
things kind of have
Yeah.
that retro feel through that lens. So, do you feel like that's something that's kind of baked into these characters, or do you think it's something
No,
that should kind of be specific
that
to
particular
character?
situation came from the outside.
Yeah, right,
That was projected onto us. We didn't have any control over it.
right, yeah.
I didn't agree with it.
So for a character like Gary, who it is his character, kind of
Yeah.
letting him own that of like, no, I'm the old
Yeah.
one. I'm the one who
He's
hasn't been around.
he's the one. I mean, we made the show that he was in 1996.
Yeah,
And I thought, oh, 40 years, that's perfect. We'll pick 1956. It's just when Elvis hit the scene. Vent dummies were, I don't know, they were still really popular. Sullivan had Paul Winchell, Edgar Bergen, he had all these people all the time. And so they were still around. And I just love the idea that you just bone up on 1956 a little bit.
yep,
And then this is, this is what he knows, you know. What on Senator Kefauver, I just thought it's so funny that like even the new Muppets don't know half of what he's talking about, you know.
right, yeah,
Only people who are old enough to be around in 56 would even get the references, but I just loved how stupid that is, you know?
yes, right. Well, in 1956 feels like or around 40 years feels a little deliberate, maybe unintentionally deliberate, to have a little oxymoron there, because that's kind of when Jim got his start, with Sam and
It is
Friends was
55,
around
yeah.
was 55, right? And this connection between Sam from Sam and Friends and Gary Cahuenga both being these like wooden puppets surrounded by these
Never
felt
thought of
characters.
that. I gave Sam and Friends no thought when we did this.
Sure, right,
It didn't even occur to me, but you're right. He was a motionless puppet. He couldn't do anything.
right.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah,
Um,
Sam
and
and Friends. God, it would be fun to have Sam meet Gary.
right,
Yeah.
that's why we bring Gary back, is so that we can actually have him interact with these characters from
Oh,
1955.
God, that's so much fun. I love it. I love it. What do you think of this guy Nixon? And Sam would know.
So Gary only appears in 3 episodes of Muppets Tonight. So we've got the Gary Coenga episode, which
Yeah.
interestingly is the only one, one of very few episodes of Muppets Tonight that wasn't focused on a guest star. There were guest stars in the episode, but this was the Gary Cahuenga was the guest star of this episode.
Yeah,
Um, was that, do you recall, like, at that time, was it kind of we don't really want this to be like the Muppet Show where we're focusing on celebrities too much, or was it more like we don't have anyone this week, let's just make it about one of the new characters?
I have no idea.
No clue.
And that particular project, the writers worked across the street off the
Mhm.
studio lot in some other place, so we didn't see them much unless they came to the studio. So
Sure.
there wasn't a lot of communication. I have no idea.
Fair enough. And then Gary also got to have a little interaction with the artist formerly known as Prince, which
That was really, really fun.
I bet
Now,
it was.
Prince, when he came, everybody told us not to talk to him as people. Don't talk to him, you know. And later I found, I guess he had lost a baby in, before birth,
Mhm.
a miscarriage. And I only heard about that later, and I haven't ever researched it, but maybe that was why they didn't want us to talk to him. Maybe he was grieving. In any case, he got on the set and he relaxed when he got on the set. He was very shy at the read through, but he was noodling around on the piano for like an hour or two at a time, and it was like sitting there listening to him write. It was really, really interesting because when he didn't have to be quiet, he was just on the set waiting for stuff, and we'd hear him just create these chords and create these little sequences. It was really, really magic.
Wow.
So we
Yeah.
shot pretty late that night, and he got sillier and sillier. He just kind of surrendered to it. And by the time we shot Gary, it was, I don't know, late afternoon or early evening. And I remember the one thing that that Gary said to him was he referred to him as Prince by accident. He was supposed to be the artist formerly known as. And so Gary said something like, "So anyway, what do you think, Prince? Whatever the hell you call yourself these days." And he just cracked up. I don't know if that's in. I can't remember if it's in or not, but he just cracked up. And and then we went on to shoot other things that I don't think I was in, but he really started goofing around then. It was like 10 o'clock at night or something, and he really had some fun.
Oh, that's great. You love to hear that. You love to hear when people are having fun, especially when they seem to have this reputation for being not fun or not
Yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
pleasant to be around. And then it's like, well, once you get to work with the Muppets, then if you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong.
Well, people usually do. They
Yeah.
usually get seduced. You know.
I want to know who's on the list of people who don't. Who are the sticks in the mud who don't
My
like working with
my
the Muppets?
memory isn't good enough. It really isn't. And it would be a very short list. We'd have to go
I'm
back
sure.
decades and decades.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to Gary specifically as a ventriloquist dummy, this
Uh-huh.
wooden character. So he knows he's a puppet or a form of a puppet because he is a ventriloquist dummy, and I know it's a little bit
Yeah,
different in the Muppet universe.
he's a ventriloquist dummy, and
Right,
that's how they talk.
right.
Yeah,
So,
there's a common misconception that the voice comes from the human who's with him.
oh, is that true?
No, they can talk. That's how they talk.
So what do
Because
they
they
need the
have wooden
ventriloquist for?
faces. They can't say certain letters because they're carved out of wood. They don't have the flexibility of a human.
Oh, so you need the human to do the letter B because they can't
No, no,
press their.
there is no letter B. The
There's
human
no
does
letter
his
B.
part, and then the ventriloquist answers him, and they talk back and forth. But
This is blowing my mind.
there's no letter B.
Wow. Um, but if he's obviously aware of being a puppet, and so did that change the way that you performed the character, like having this, because you're always performing a puppet, but now you're performing a
Yeah.
puppet who knows he's a puppet in a world of puppets who don't know they're puppets.
Well, we didn't go there.
Right.
We didn't exactly go there. Of course, he's a ventriloquist dummy. He knows that, but he's also in show business, and that's what he's really about. He's done all the shows.
Right. Yes.
So, Gary Coenga's references are 50s, but, if we had developed him more, maybe he would remember vaudeville. Maybe he played in all the theaters around the country. You know,
Yeah.
that's a
Right.
possibility. And then when television came in, he got into television.
Right. Yeah. Right. He kind of fell asleep for 40 years and then stumbled into television.
Yeah.
Right. So you've spoken before about characters and their wants,
Hmm.
and I believe you've said this in terms of like Beauregard and Digit and characters like that we people have asked for to bring back into the fold or to give them more of a spotlight, and it's hard to
True.
find that want to drive their character. So, what is Gary's want? What
Whoa,
would
that's a good.
Gary?
We
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
get that far. Actually, we didn't get that far.
sure,
He
right,
was just glad to get out of the box, and
right,
you know, we didn't get that far, but we would have to address that, and
yeah.
I think basically, I don't know, who knows? One thing could have been that he wants to go on the show, but he doesn't have a he doesn't have a ventriloquist,
Well,
and
that
it's
was a little bit in that episode in the Gary Cahuenga debut was
yeah,
he was auditioning different ventriloquists with different Muppet characters, but in the end he learns the lesson of, well, you don't need a partner, you can do this on your own.
yeah,
Uh,
it might have been funny to have him go on and do a ventriloquist act with no partner, so that
yeah, right,
he's kind of saying both parts himself or something.
right, just
It
the
would have been
punchline.
Yeah, it would have been fun to see him hobble through an act without a ventriloquist.
Right,
Because somehow he'd have to have some back and forth because that's the kind of comedy he knows.
yeah, right. So let's talk about his name, Gary Cahuenga.
Oh yeah,
So Cahuenga, I think, is most well known as a boulevard in Hollywood. Do you have a personal
Cahuenga?
connection to Cahuenga?
Yes, Cahuenga is a gateway to Hollywood because a lot of people who come to get into show business end up living in the Valley, and you get to Hollywood over Cahuenga Pass.
Hmm.
And in fact, when I went to college, I lived in Burbank with my parents and drove over Cahuenga Pass to go over to where the Art Center College of Design was at 3rd Street and Highland. So, in my own mind, it's the gateway to Hollywood. And even
Right.
even in high school, after the games, we would go over to Magoo's Pizza, which used to be on Hollywood Boulevard, not too far from Highland, a little east of Highland. And so I would tell my cousins who live up in Northern California, yeah, we go to Hollywood all the time after the games. And to them, it was like, really? We live in Davis. We live in Sacramento. You go to Hollywood? Yeah, after every game. So I always had this idea that Coenga was the gateway, and of course he's named Gary because Gary Halverson was the model
Mhm.
for him. Gary
Right.
Halverson was our director. So, so that's where his name came from, and I really liked it. And then when it came time to name his ventriloquist, the writers came up with Chick Fernando.
Yeah,
So
is there a history behind Chick Fernando?
yes, the Chick was just made up because it's just kind of a funny nickname,
Yeah.
and then Fernando obviously because he was from the Valley too,
Oh, sure.
right? So he's probably living out there in Northridge or somewhere, and thinking, I got to get this guy, I got to get in show business with my dummy. I'm gonna call. I got to go for an audition. I'm going into over Cahuenga, and I'm gonna call my dummy Cahuenga, Gary Cahuenga.
Right.
So from his point of view, that's how the names got made up. And from our point of view, they just made sense that they were aspirational.
Right. Oh, that
Yeah,
makes sense. It's so
yeah,
subtle. Especially when I feel like most characters are just named for what sounds interesting.
yeah.
It's just yeah, he's a Gonzo kind of guy. His name's Gonzo.
Well,
You know.
that's fine too. But I
Yeah.
had a part in naming Bunsen Honeydew,
Oh yeah.
and that was another similar case. The name, well, he looked like a melon, and he kind of
Mhm.
looked like a honeydew melon. So that was one suggestion that came up. We were just sitting around the shop trying to think of a name for him, and then I forgot whether I thought of honeydew or Bunsen. But the idea of Bunsen, being named after a Bunsen beaker, like
Yeah.
his parents must have had a premonition that he was going to go into science. But so that became his name, Bunsen Honeydew.
Yeah.
And
Well, it
again, it's
fits.
it's similar to Gary's in the sense that it relates to his life story.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that too because we don't talk very often about the backstories of some of these characters. I know Frank has mentioned a few times, where he imagines Miss Piggy or Sam the Eagle or an
Hmm.
animal come from, and it helps him
Oh
with his
yeah.
performance. But yeah, some of these other guys, I don't think we've ever really talked about, Bunsen's backstory.
Yeah.
Do you have backstories for these characters, like in your head?
Um, Not to the degree that Frank does. He really sat down and wrote them.
Hmm.
Piggy's father was killed in a tractor accident.
Right.
She was raised on a farm. All those little funny things. I didn't ever really go through that exercise, but they sort of, in my mind, they sort of live with they do come from a history, It's more character based.
Right.
Like in Bunson's case, he sort of reminds me of people that I knew when I worked in Silicon Valley. And there were people who would get focused on the minute details and miss the big picture.
Hmm.
And of course, there wasn't anybody that stupid at Hewlett Packard, but I just
I don't know
thought,
about that. I bet there are. I bet there were at
oh
least
no,
one
no,
or
we
two.
we work with great people, but I just thought it's really funny to have a guy who is he's thinking at the electron level, and he is completely unaware that he's making something useless, you
Right.
know. And of course, that's a sort of a play. It's a satirization of what technology sometimes does. It's still happening.
That's true.
We're in the
That's true.
middle of the misinformation age, but you only get the information that you want to get.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't get the truth.
Yeah. The Bunsons of the world today are, they're working for
They're working for Facebook,
ChatGPT and Elon Musk and all
ChatGPT.
them. Yep.
Yeah, all those
Yeah.
guys. That's where they work. And it's not that they're political. It's just that's where the jobs are.
Right. That too. Right.
Bunsen he would be deep inside Meta somewhere
Right.
with a little lab.
Right. Also, because there's no grants these days. So he
Yeah,
can't work in a lab somewhere. He's got to go get a job with one of the big companies.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's it. The grants all died up, so I'm going to industry. Yeah.
Back to the Cahuenga name. I wanted to ask you. So Gary is not the first Cahuenga in the world of the Muppets. Do you have any memory of the character Clive Cahuenga, who was on the Muppet Show back in the Danny Kaye episode?
I did not have that memory until you mentioned it in our email prior to this interview.
Hmm.
And then I went and looked him up and I thought, oh my God, I forgot all about this. And when we named Gary Cahuenga, I forgot all about Clive Cahuenga. If I had known there has been a Clive Cahuenga, I might have named him something different,
Sure.
you know? But it was completely an accident. It's really weird. When I first joined the Muppets, I think I asked Jerry and Frank about something that they had done on Sesame Street. And it's something that meant a lot to me. It was something that I really thought was brilliant. And they couldn't remember it.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought, how can you be on television and not remember it? How is that possible? Well, I know.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same. We talk about this all the time, especially talking with the Muppet Wiki guys, where they have this mystery: who performed this character, what
Yeah.
happened behind the scenes, and then we approach you guys who were there,
Hmm.
and of course you don't remember, especially because you were producing so much back in those days at any given time,
Oh, yeah.
and I think back to like, well, if someone asked me about something that I did on any given day in 2008, there's no way I'm going to remember.
No, and unless you'd been on television in 2008, then
Right. Then I remember every
it
detail.
would be vivid for you. But
Right.
if you were on television as much as we were, then you lose track.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I'd also wonder if you were more interested in rewatching your stuff. If like you'd
I
already rewatched the Muppet Show a dozen times and you remember exactly where you were because you get to revisit it in your memory.
It's really weird. I don't rewatch things. In fact,
Mhm.
sometimes I never even see them
Yeah.
if they're smaller things. But I just kind of watch it once. But I'm just busy every day with new
Yeah.
stuff.
Right. You do other
Even when
things in your life.
like even between Muppet engagements when I'm at home, I'm working on stuff.
Hmm.
And I just am fully engaged in things that there are projects for the family. I make heirloom things. Uh, I have to maintain the property, so that means working with contractors,
Sure.
subcontractors and stuff. So I'm doing all those things, and then family business, and visiting family, and yeah, there's just so much to do that I just don't sit down and watch the old stuff.
Yeah.
And
That
it's
makes a lot of
fun when I
sense.
do. It's fun when I do, but it's just that I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do today.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you keep as busy as you are though. I feel like that's something that's gonna, it keeps you sharp, it keeps
Oh
your
yeah.
hands working because as much as we would love to think that you're being called in to perform with Muppets or Henson, every other week, we know realistically there's only so much production work that's going on at any given time.
Oh yeah. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. Like first of all, I like being at home.
Hmm.
And second, when I'm at home, I'm working on my own projects and just various things. Uh, and I'm fully engaged in it. And going to way to work now is an interruption in that.
Sure. That must have been nice for Fraggle then, when you were able to kind of do the work, but also just stay in your own home for
Oh,
bits of
for
the
the new
while.
Fraggle,
Yeah,
yes, the
yeah,
new Fraggle. Well, it was because of COVID. I just didn't want to go to work in a studio anywhere, let
yeah.
alone Calgary.
Right.
So I just replaced the voices on three of my characters. I gave up three others, and just stayed here and acted as a co-EP.
Hmm.
And then when the shows were shot, I went and replaced the voices.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's not a bad gig.
it was great. It was so
Good.
perfect for the time, and I was very grateful. Oh, I was actually grateful that they called me in the first place.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, because I didn't know what Lisa was thinking about regarding how to do a new Fraggle Rock. And my first piece of advice to her was make up new characters because it's too hard for somebody to try to recreate somebody else's character. If they're doing their own character, it comes out of them organically. And then, they didn't do it that way. I think they just felt that the Fraggle Five were well enough known that the continuity of having them in both series would be worthwhile.
yeah. And actually, that's speaking of creating new characters. So I was looking at your filmography and things that you've done from Muppets Tonight through
Well, that's
today.
not fair. Now, come on,
You're
that's not.
you're Googleable. I am not. I can look to see what you did. And so what's interesting to me is because you have these core characters that you pretty much have to play in every Muppet production.
Mhm.
Um, After Muppets Tonight, there's very few original characters that you got to create from the ground up. So is
Yeah.
that something that you miss?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If we were to do a Muppet Show reboot, we would once again have the opportunity to do one-shot characters.
Yeah,
And then, you do a one-shot character, something really magic happens, and now you've got a guy who you can bring back or a gal.
yeah.
And so that kind of thing is really exciting. I really miss doing new characters. I just love finding the absurdity and humanity in characters, and I just love doing them. Absolutely love them.
Well, we miss that as well. I mean, as much as we love the core Muppet characters, there's such a huge universe that I don't think we've really gotten to explore since the Muppets Tonight days.
Oh yeah, like no, we haven't done any of that during Disney,
Yeah,
and it's a sad thing. I would love to bring Gary back. I'd love to bring Digit back. I'd love to. There's just so many characters. Chip, the IT guy, is an example of that.
yeah,
Because when you have these characters appearing regularly, that's when they grow. Writers think of things for them to do, new things for them to do. We do. The last time we used Chip was in Muppets Tonight, and no, the Muppets. It was called the Muppets. Sorry,
the
the,
TV show.
the
You
TV
mean?
series is called
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Muppets.
And
Yeah,
then he made an appearance in Muppets Haunted Mansion, I
yeah,
believe. Yeah,
a little bit, but that's just a token
yeah.
thing.
Small. Yeah,
But these characters, they all have potential. They could be just as deep as any of the primary characters. Uh, but unfortunately, the primary characters are perceived as the franchise now. We were never like that before. We
hmm
did have characters that fell into the limelight and became main characters, but we were always creating new ones. There was always like there was, the Zucchini Brothers, Flying Zucchini Brothers, all these other characters who showed up in a certain way. Like those guys were very specific. They could only speak in product names, Italian products like Lamborghini, Fettuccine. So that's all we did with them. But you could take one of them and have them come backstage, and they would say, "We don't know what to have for lunch." It's fettuccine,
Yeah,
you know. So you could expand them. They don't have much potential because they're so limited, but there was just an opportunity to make new characters all the time.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
There's an art to the one-dimensional character that I think most franchises really can't. They don't have the ability to go into. We've got our like the three-dimensional characters like Kermit and Piggy and Gonzo, and then our two-dimensional characters that just kind of do they hit that same note because that's
Yeah.
their reasoning
Uh-huh.
for being. And then you
Right.
get these characters just like they come in and they do something stupid and you learn nothing about them,
Yeah.
and that's it. They have that one dimension, and I love that the Muppets were able to do that throughout the years.
Oh
I do
yeah,
miss that.
well, you're exactly right. There are those two types of characters. They're like Animal is one dimensional in a way.
Hmm.
Frank always said he knows five words. That's it.
Yeah.
Food, sex, woman, and two others. Uh,
Drums and sleep were the other two, I think.
yeah, that's it. Thank you. My
Something like that.
God, I'm
Yeah.
talking. I should be
It's all up
interviewing
here.
you. I learn more from you than you do from me. But yeah, Animal was meant to be limited in scope, and in recent years, sometimes the writers give him too many words, and they break the character.
Yeah.
But that was his strength was the limitation, you know. Whereas Piggy is a complex character,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
both done by the same person. But Frank knew enough to leave Animal simple, just make him simple.
Yeah.
Well, one more thing about Animal.
12 more
Uh,
things. Go ahead.
well, so Animal was a very simple character. His vocabulary was limited and so on. But Frank did something once. I think it was at the end of the Muppet movie, if I'm not mistaken, when the ceiling exploded in the studio they were in
Yeah.
and light came through. And Animal looked up at it and just tilted his head as he looked at it. And so now you're seeing the dim beginnings of reasoning. He's trying to figure it out. And that's the depth that Frank could bring to even a character that was limited.
Yeah. That's true. Well, and it's so much more of a gut punch when it's a character that you wouldn't expect that from, and yet
Yeah.
it's he found a way to make it in character. And it's actually something that like I sometimes have an issue with the way that Animal's written. I won't say performed. Eric does a great job, but the way that he's written, where I call him baby caveman, because he's like a little kid. He doesn't seem like a dangerous animal anymore. He doesn't seem like a wild dog. And it just has like a limited vocabulary, and I kind of miss that 5 word sum up of who he is
I totally
that we
agree.
were used to.
That's always my feedback.
Hmm.
I always have that same feedback. And in the beginning, Floyd led Animal on a chain.
Yeah.
The animal had a chain around his neck with an iron neckband.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that was that was the idea that he was uncontrollable, and we've lost that. But this is a weird thing about inheritance. When performers inherit a character, and when the workshop rebuilds an old character, that's sort of an inheritance too. So I was there when Don Sahlin built Dr. Teeth, and when he built Dr. Teeth, he did two things that I thought were just absolutely brilliant Donald Sahlin stuff. One was when he built the hat, the top hat that Dr. Teeth wears, he built the cylinder. When he built the top hat that Dr. Teeth wears, he built the cylindrical part out of really soft foam. It was like half-inch thick, 1 pound density urethane.
Hmm.
And then he put a thin plywood lid on the top, right? So now you have a cylinder with an end on it,
Yeah.
but the end is a little heavier. And then, because that way, when Dr. Teeth moves, the heavy part of the hat keeps moving
Yeah.
after Dr. Teeth's head stops. And to make it even more interesting, what Don did was he took a fish weight, and he chose just the right fish weight, and he tied it to a screw eye that was in the top of the hat by a short length of fishing line, black fishing line. And what this was a pendulum. So there was a periodicity of that pendulum. It takes, no matter how fast it's going, it takes a certain amount of time to get back and forth. And what that created was a life to the hat.
Yeah.
So that when he stopped, the hat just kept going because the pendulum was still going inside.
I never
Isn't
knew
it?
that.
No, that's just a brilliant thing.
It,
That's
does
been
does Dr. T still have that in his hat, or is that
No, he
long gone?
doesn't. It's got
Wow.
lost. And it's not intentionally. It's just that somebody duplicated them and they never even found it in there or something.
Right. Yeah.
You know. And so that was lost. The other thing about Dr. Teeth is that when he was built, Dr. John was the reference, the singer from New Orleans. And so since it was New Orleans, Don made a little juju bag that was a suede leather bag that was sealed up that
Yes.
Dr. Teeth wore around his neck. And it had secret things inside that Don put
Oh,
in. And he never told anybody what was in there.
when you say secret things, you mean like in character it's a secret, or he literally put something in there that
It
he
was a
never told
secret.
anyone?
He never told us what was in there.
Wow.
It was just that Dr. Teeth had his own little New Orleans juju bag with probably witchcraft elements or something in there. I don't know what they were. I have
Wow.
no idea. But that's the kind of magic that the original people had that got lost when the characters were rebuilt, because probably somebody thought, what's this thing? Oh, we don't need it. We'll change the costume a little bit,
Right.
and they just don't realize that they've lost something.
Right. Yeah. There's things that have meaning, but yeah, we if we don't know that there is meaning, we can't continue the meaning or
Yes.
even redefine the meaning.
Yeah,
Um,
it's frustrating.
and I think a lot about, I try really hard not to get too caught up in like, well, it was better in the olden days or like they, things, got watered down, whatever it is. Because I do want to give a lot of credit to the current performers,
Oh,
especially.
absolutely. And our
Um,
workshop is incredible.
yeah, yeah,
He's the best puppet makers in the world. And whenever we go shoot, we don't know which ones are going to show up
yeah.
on the set. And that's always a wonderful surprise. It's always a reunion. You get to see some. We just last a few days ago, I was in Miami and Rachel showed up from Burbank and
Oh,
so
oh,
I get a
nice.
chance to catch up with her. But
Good.
it's always a surprise to me because there's no reason for them to, the Muppets to tell me who's coming. So we have great relationships and they're wonderful people.
Yeah,
And
good.
it's not like the old days were better because I don't like that kind of sentimentality. But what was different was that Jim hired all these people and he hired people who were natural enemies in real life. They wouldn't get along, but he hired them because they were unique in some way. And it took a while for me to realize that, and I realized, oh my God, this person who I thought was difficult or wouldn't fit in industry can do something that nobody else can do.
Yeah.
And Jim brought all those colors in with the people and let them do their thing. It was brilliant. It's very hard to do that within a corporation because corporations have everything standardized.
Yep.
They make lots of rules, and it's just harder. It's harder to have license to create.
You know, we as Muppet fans hear so much about the brilliant things that Jim did or the things that he was good at. He was an amazing performer and writer and designer and
Oh
producer.
yeah,
And then we hear about like, things like he's great with the finance side of things. And now I'm learning about HR
yeah.
and he could have been in any position in that company and he would have nailed it. He just it seems
Oh
like he
yeah.
was
He
just
he really
incredible.
knew. He'd show up on a set, and because he was so soft spoken, uh, if we were in a strange set, a lot of the people in the crew would sort of discount him. And then in his quiet way, he would say something to the lighting guy, like, maybe you could put a key there. That would be nice. Lighting guy would slowly realize, oh, he knows my job as well as I do.
Sure.
And he's got high standards. And then they loved him. But
Yeah.
it was always this little learning curve that he just let happen. It was extraordinary.
It's almost like a game. Like how
It's
long
sort
will
of
it
like
take for them to learn it?
yeah, sort of like a game. And of course, we always played with the crews. So, a given character might have a particular like Wembley Fraggle just believed that Harley, the switcher, was the god of light. Sorry, no, excuse me, that he was God. So, Harley would put a little lightning bolt over Wembley's head and it would knock him down, just a
Right.
little super. And
Yeah,
so Harley and Wembley played all the time.
it's fun.
And I had, Boober had a relationship with Gordy Luker, who was the lighting guy. And so, Wembley and Boober would have religious debates about who was really God, because Wembley felt that Harley was really God, and Boober felt that Gordy was God. And so they'd have these theological debates off
That's
camera,
great.
not part of the shoot.
Yeah, well, of course, but yeah, it's incredible. It's and that also feels very Fraggle Rock. It feels very
Yeah.
Bubba's Burger Barn, I think is the episode.
Oh
You remember
yeah,
that one?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the
Buffett Burger
theology
Bar.
in Fraggles. So we could talk about an hour about just that.
Oh yeah, Large Marvin. Good
Y-
God. Uh, yeah, and getting back to your question about Jim, working with him, and every day I live, I realize it more, was the opportunity of a lifetime because here was a guy who was truly a decent person, who hired people and let them shine, who was generous to a fault, who was fun. He just wanted to play all the time. but who was also the hardest working person I ever met. And it was seductive.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it was like I worked 10 times as hard at Muppets as I did at Hewlett Packard.
Right.
You know, the pace of what we did at HP was like each project lasted for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So again, on a given day, whatever you accomplished didn't really amount to much.
Right.
You know, you didn't have to advance the project for a month, and then you do some work, and you have 2 or 3 years to get a product out. So in this case, everything that we did was right now and vital, and it was important, and the buck stopped here, especially
Hmm.
with performing, but also with the Wranglers on set. Those guys are amazing. There are certain people who like to do the wrangling on set. Um, you might know you might know Jurgen and Scott
Yeah.
Johnson,
Right. Right. From Back to the Rock. Yeah.
Jurgen Ferguson. So
Yes.
these two guys, can I tell you a little story about Chip?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we were shooting that show, The Muppets, in the office setting, and the showrunner changed. And so now they weren't writing Chip in anymore. The new person just didn't include Chip. So there was a scene where Chip was sitting at his hacking desk, and all the characters ran through going off camera to a room. They were going, I don't know what the reason was. For some reason in the story, they all wanted to go see what was happening in this room. And, I was just doing my job, just Chip's just sitting there being Chip. And our director, Randall Einhorn, said, "Hey, what if Chip follows along like the way a little kid follows big kids?
Yeah.
Kind of like hopping along behind everybody?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay." So I did. And when we got into the room, there was electronic dance music playing. And I got there and I thought, "Oh, this is how characters grow." I thought, "Oh my God, this is Chip's. It's his elixir." Like he hears any other kind of music, doesn't mean
Doesn't get
anything
it.
to him.
Yep.
But EDM, he's out of control of his body. He just dances like it controls him. And
Right.
and I thought this is really going to be fun because he can do any movement and it will become a dance. And I just loved it. And I said to Scotty and Jurgen, "Do you guys have a tongue?" And they went right out of the room. They went out to the shop. They came back like 2 minutes later with a tongue that was 5 inches long. I slapped it in his mouth. Just the back of it just sticks on with double tape to his own tongue inside his mouth. And now I had true possession, like he was possessed. And the tongue was out, and his eyes were rolling, and he was just like, flinching. And the dance was just so much fun. And because I didn't even know what I was going to do next, you know, it was just a pure unconscious thing.
Yeah.
We did a
Yeah.
couple of takes, and I said, "Scotty and Jurgen, do you have a longer tongue?" Out of the room they went. They came back 3 minutes later with like an 8 or 9 inch long tongue. I put that in there, and now he was really possessed. He didn't look anything like his normal self. And you can roll the tongue up and then have it concealed with his mouth closed, and then all of a sudden, the tongue comes out, and he starts moving to the music. And I just thought that's just such a great character element that if we used him more, we could make that part of the story.
Right.
But here's what's different, and this is why the times with Jim were essentially different. You could say that to Jim, and he would say it to the writers, or the writers were on set. We only had for the Muppet Show at any given time not more than 4 writers. So one of them might be on set, and you suggest this thing, and they go upstairs and write it in. There's no showrunner, there's no hierarchy, there's no stay out of the writer's room.
Hmm.
It was just a little group of us collaborating and always working in service of the best idea. Because if you're honest, the best idea is undeniable. It's obvious. If I have a plan and somebody says, "Oh, what if you did this?" It's very clear which one is better. And if the
Right. Yeah.
suggestion is better, I'm all on board. Let's do it. You know, it was a very different culture. It was just tiny and easy. It was moldable and easily, very responsive. And the Henson
Yeah.
Company is still like that. They are still really responsive and agile. A big company, very hard to be agile, very hard to be agile in Hollywood.
I think a lot of people who work in television specifically, but also a lot of people who want to kind of emulate, follow in Jim's footsteps and create their own, whatever their own puppet troupe
Hmm.
or franchises. Um, they are often thinking of, well, how do I perfect this character or this, this I'm trying to make something that looks like Sesame Street but isn't Sesame Street.
Mm.
And I think they forget that that the most important thing is not the like how do you stage the scene or create the character as much as how do you put the right people together that can have the best ideas and then be open to those ideas. That
Uh-huh.
it's not a monolith. You're not a monolith being a creator.
Right.
Um, and yeah, I mean, Jim, again, talking about Jim being good at so many different things, being good at listening and being good at not feeling like he needs to be, the top of the pyramid,
Oh yeah.
the guy with the ideas.
Oh yeah.
I think really, obviously, it made like a lot of different projects that we still talk about being among, the greatest of all time. The Muppet Show, the movies,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It was characteristic of him that he wanted the best work. And he hired all these people because they would bring in different things. He didn't hire people who were like him. He hired different people. And each of those people could contribute what was in their heart. It was a really marvelous thing to work with him. One time we were ballooning in France. He took a little group of us ballooning, hot air
Okay.
ballooning,
Yeah.
and we were in the
You
lobby
you
of the
mean hot air
hotel.
balloon, right? I assume you mean hot air balloon, not
Yeah, hot air balloon.
like you're making balloon animals.
No, no.
Just make sure I got the verb right. Okay.
Took us to France to make balloon animals.
Right.
No, no, it was hot air ballooning, and we were in the lobby of the hotel, and this Michael DeBakey, who was one of the really pioneering heart surgeons. This was about the time that heart replacements were starting, and he was working on a mechanical heart so that this could be implanted in a sort of a parallel solution to replacing a heart with a human heart. Anyway, that was what we knew him about. He's very famous at the time, and he came up to Jim and introduced himself and said, "I just love what you're doing." And Jim was so gracious. I was not too far away, so I could hear what he said. And he said, "Well, I get all the credit for this. I tend to get the credit for this, but it's really a group of us, and the work belongs to all of us." And then he introduced a bunch of us to DeBakey, and we had a little chat. Uh, he was just he was too good to be true. Where will the next Jim come from? I don't know. It could be a long time
Yeah, it's
before
true.
anybody with those qualities comes along.
I'd love to ask you, another thing that Jim did, from the stories that I've heard, with surrounding himself with all these really talented and different types of people, is he got to a point after working with folks for enough time that he wanted to encourage them to go off on their own and create their own thing, to not just work for Jim, but to do their own thing. Bonnie Erickson has told me stories many times about how he encouraged her to create her own company and start the mascot business. And I've heard stories about, helping Richard he was trying to create his own TV show.
But
Even
yeah,
Fraggle
yeah,
Rock
yeah.
and Frank is a great example, encouraging Frank with his directing career. Did he do that with you as well? Did he try to kind of get you to decide
Well,
what your life was outside of the
he
Muppets?
actually never learned my name, so no, no. I didn't have those desires. I mean, Richard wanted to be on camera because he had started out wanting to be an actor. Frank really wanted to be a director because he wanted to control everything. And so those were different cases. And when Bonnie left, it wasn't like he said go at all. He didn't
Right.
want her, he didn't, it wasn't his idea. But when she decided to go, he helped her.
Yeah.
And so Jim didn't hold on to people. He didn't try to get them to do something they didn't want to do. He supported them. He just said, "Well, we're friends. We'll always be in touch. We'll always be friends. You go ahead and do what you need to do, and I'll help you if I can." But to see, that's another thing about Jim that how often do you find that in a person who has a company?
Yeah. That's true.
You
That's
know,
true. Yeah.
oh my God, it was just nirvana, and I recognized it obviously when I first met Jim. I could see qualities in him. And he was, the very first time I met him was in a rehearsal hall at CBS TV City in LA. And his mother had died the day before. So I wanted to cancel the meeting because I'd flown down for it from the Bay Area, but I just said, well, it's out of the question. Let's just not, we'll find another time. And he said, no, I want to talk. And so he looked at my portfolio. I had three puppets with me. He put them on. He ad-libbed with me. And it was another one of those little moments where I thought, well, this is all I need in life.
Yeah.
This happened. I'm good.
Yep.
I don't need anything more. But he was just so easy to be with and flexible and fun. And he was interested in everybody. That's where his characters came from. He had
Mhm.
an interest in people, an interest in characters. I don't even know how to summarize him. He's just so extraordinary. To meet a person like that in your life and have it change your life like it did mine, completely changed my life. And it was also pre-therapeutic in a way.
Hmm.
I made characters by finding flaws in myself. And I didn't realize I was doing this for a few years. And then I thought, oh, I'm picking things that are wrong with me and trying to make them lovable because it's the Muppets. They have to be lovable.
Sure.
And I realized many years after that, oh, that's like therapy.
Yeah.
You're taking a flaw and figuring out how to love it.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's, I
I mean,
mean,
I can't tell you how epic from my little ant standpoint. Like I'm
mhm.
another ant on the planet like everybody else, and the whole planet is an ant, you know.
I mean, like you were obviously, lucky enough to get to work with him for all those years, and even for me, I never met Jim. You know, really am just someone who is influenced and inspired by his work and his life and his legacy, and even that's enough. I've learned so much about my own philosophy of how to run business and how to be a creative in this world, and
Hmm.
what's important when it comes to creating, and things like you say, it's surrounding yourself with the right people, knowing what to say yes to, um
Hmm.
trying to take ego out of the equation, and that's bare minimum, like that's like those big bullet points before you even get into the weeds with how he ran his business.
Absolutely. And when you mention ego, somehow Jim just rolled with it.
Yeah.
He just didn't engage in arguments and fights. He just didn't. He just
Hmm.
wasn't what he was about. Um, we had a fake fight once.
Oh.
You know,
What did
we
you fake
were,
fight about?
it was during the Muppet Show, and asked me late morning to do some choreography for the Gills brothers who were singing a song we were going to shoot after lunch. And so I worked out some choreography for it. And the ending was they all sing the last note and then they just fall over backwards. And he said, well, what's that? And I said, that's the die ending. They die. He says, we're not going to do the die ending. That's stupid. And I said, no, it's art. You have to think this is on another level. This is not just dying. This is a metaphysical thing. It's a metaphor. And he said, that's just stupid. We're not, there's no way we're doing a die ending. And I said, we got to do a die. Jim, we have to. And we both knew it meant nothing. It didn't matter
Right.
at
Yeah.
all. But it was just so much fun to have a fake argument.
I love that. Did you end up keeping the die ending? I gotta look for that now.
No, no, he wouldn't allow it.
Oh, so you
He
lost the fight.
absolutely, he would not allow it.
Wow.
He was rigid and inflexible about that.
Well, yes, it's nice, and it also, like, who out there has a boss that they could have a fake fight with? Like, I'm intimidated
Yeah.
by every person I've ever worked for. I could never do it. You must
Oh,
have felt so
yeah.
comfortable with him.
That started the first time I met him.
Mm,
It was the sweetest thing. He came, well, the first time I met him was after his mother died. It was a
mm.
CBS. The second time, I had been making some videotapes within HP with puppets. And so he came to Los Gatos. I got him a hotel and we went out to dinner, took him out to dinner. And then I brought him over to my Victorian house where I lived and showed him my videos. And he was very supportive about those. I was kind of apologizing for them for not being at the quite at the Muppet level. He said, "No, these are you're really good, and you've got a great start here." I mean, there's no ending to that story.
No,
Sorry.
but it shows the support that he gave. I always think of the Carol Spinney story,
Yes, yes. I
I
loved
love
what
what
you were
you were
trying to
trying to do.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's something I quote
yeah.
pretty much every other day of my life. Um,
It's
but
brilliant.
yeah, but he just saw something and
Yeah,
he made the decision of I'm going to support this. I want to be a part of you, and I want you to be a part of what we're doing.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. I mean, I'm having trouble expressing what this means to have run into that guy, that
Yeah,
person. It makes my little ant life epic from my point of view,
yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, for sure, definitely from our point of view,
It
you
didn't
don't
have to
have
go
just a
that
little
way.
ant
There's
life.
a lot of
Yeah.
reasons where it wouldn't have gone that way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And it inspires us to pass it along. I
Yeah.
think is the other thing. It's not just this is how he made the Muppets good. It's how he made the Muppets good, and everyone who worked with the Muppets or was inspired by the Muppets can go off and do their own thing and make it good.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and also to make life better, to have
Hmm.
fun doing it. I mean, of course, we're supposed to be having fun when we do the Muppets. It's better, the work is much better if we're having fun. But that's
Right.
why he supported pranking. He loved
Mm.
pranks.
Yeah.
He was one of the original pranksters, and Don Celine was the mother of all pranksters.
Sure.
And
I've heard a couple of stories.
when I got to be friends with him, I that got me going. And so, Don and I were in a sort of a fake war to kill each other with fright. And that led to a bunch of things that I talked about when I did Muppet prank culture at the Center for Puppetry Arts. I mean, God, I could have been at HP for the next 40 years and done the same things over and over and retired and had a little pension. And that would have been a really good life.
Hmm.
When you compare it to the rest of the people in the world, you think, oh, it's pretty nice. You got to designing things is fun.
Yeah.
We work for pretty good people, pretty almost wonderful people all the time. So that would have been a good life, but I just didn't feel like it was my life. I went at the time just thinking, it needs to be more emotional. This is an intellectual job and it's great and it's challenging and fun in that way, but it would be great if it was more emotional. And I had no idea what that would be. And I accidentally saw Sesame Street.
That's it. That's all it
Yeah,
takes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm thinking about this a lot because I'm working on a memoir right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's great. Oh, I'm so glad to
yeah,
hear that.
yeah. It's really it's such an interesting process, because it's sort of about figuring out what the important things in my life were. What were the
Hmm.
main movements, because a lot of stuff happens to all of us. We can
Yeah.
all like we all have 3 trillion things that happen to us, right?
Yeah.
And you have to choose which ones were the significant ones.
Right.
So I'm going through that now, and it's really, really fun. And of course, a lot of it has to do with the Muppets.
Yeah. Of course.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge thing. It was a license to get into work that was pre-therapeutic. It led me to the next development in my life, which was therapy, which led me to the next thing, which was having kids. Getting married and having kids. And so I'm really interested. I'm sort of doing it as a sort of a summary exercise in my life, thinking, well, okay, what was this all about? Let me write it down. I don't know if anybody will want to publish it, but it would be it's really fun, and I'm doing it in an interesting way, which I can't discuss right now. But the way of telling the story is something I haven't heard of before.
I am extremely excited about this. I mean, I think that someone will be interested in publishing, but I can tell you for a fact there are a lot of people, myself right in front of line, who want to read this. That sounds really exciting.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun to read.
Yeah. Good. Well, keep
Yeah.
us updated for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, the most important question is, what do you think Jim would have thought of Gary Coenga?
Oh, he would love it. He would have
Yeah.
just loved it. Yeah, Jim was wide open for new ideas, and he would have loved that. He would have thought Gary was really fun, and he would have convulsed with laughter at the predicaments that Gary would be able to get into,
Yeah.
like not being able to pick things up,
Right.
or picking something up and breaking it.
Yeah.
That creates an interpersonal dynamic amongst the characters. Jim would have had lots of ideas as to how to use him. You know,
Yeah.
he probably would have been a secondary character to the main group, but probably would have had a lot of action.
Well, I hope someday Gary somehow finds his way back into our lives and we can explore who this guy could have been.
I know.
I'm sure he's in a drawer somewhere. Just wait. He's back in that box.
Yeah.
And it's
He's in
now
his box.
once it's been another 40 years, which is not that far from now from
You know what?
from Muppets Night.
Actually, when we shot the pilot for the Muppet Show, what they called the special,
Mhm.
um, in case it wasn't any good.
Yeah.
But when we were shooting that, for some reason, they brought in Gary Cahuenga.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was
No.
so good to see him. We weren't using him; he wasn't in the show, but for some reason he showed up, and he had some internal mechanisms that were broken, so he didn't work quite right. But to see him again and to see that jacket, it was so wonderful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so
They couldn't even throw him in the audience there, huh? They just didn't use him at all.
he only came by to visit.
Right.
He was like he had a visitor's pass.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
but
couldn't even get a visitor's pass, and Gary got one. Come on.
I know. I don't even know why. I don't know why they brought him in. Actually, it might have been Lee's thought of thinking of using him again or something. They didn't tell me. Maybe they're going to give him to me when I retire.
Hey, is that what you want if you're going to take one character home? Give me Gary.
Yeah, I need a
Take it
dummy
with
with
me.
I need a dummy with a stick inside.
Finally, yes.
Yeah,
Get you
yeah,
that dummy
yeah.
with the stick.
Which I wouldn't be getting him out and playing with him all the time anyway. But
Right, you have yard work to do.
I have mowing. Come on.
Dave, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for talking about Gary and Jim and beyond with me. This is really such a joy.
This is great fun. I really love your work, and I think you're also a great on-camera person too.
Oh, thank you. For
you're
all the
really
people who can't
talented.
see me right now because it's a podcast, but
I know, but I think they've seen you, and you always do great work when you're
well, thank you. Thank
acting as a human.
you. Right.
Which I don't know
So
what you are
rare
right
for
now.
me.
Yeah.
Act like a human. Well, no one can see my Gary Cahuenga jacket right now. I'm wearing the green checkered jacket.
Yeah, well, you've got that on, and your hands are all flat. But when you do impersonate humans, you do a very good job of it.
Thank you. And no one even noticed that I didn't use the letter B throughout this whole interview.
That's another problem. It's another little handicap. I love characters to have handicaps, things they just can't handle. And of course, he can't speak right, so you could do a bit about somebody not understanding what he's saying. You mean goy or boy?
Right.
Oh, I'm telling you, goy, like a little goy. You could go around and around with somebody who couldn't understand him. That could be their relationship.
Between that and not understanding his Sputnik references,
Exactly. Sputnik. That was 1957.
Oh,
So
he makes a Sputnik reference in Muppets Tonight. So someone better get on that. One of those writers should get fired for that blunder.
it is a little bit of a blunder, but it's so good because Sputnik is just a great word,
It's a great word.
and it was
Just
a
like Cahuenga.
pivotal. It was a
fun to
pivotal
say.
time. Yeah, Gary Cahuenga. Well, this character stuff is just so much fun.
Yeah.
Just thinking of predicaments for these poor characters.
70 Years, 70 Muppets, More Muppets Please is a Muppet fan podcast presented by toughpigs.com. Hosted by a myriad of people and edited by them as well. Produced by Joe Hennis. The Muppets 70 logo is used with permission by the Muppet Studio, with thanks to Danny Iglesias, Frank Reifschneider, and Lee Slaughter. Don't forget to follow toughpigs.com on all social media platforms, and you can support us by heading to patreon.com/toughpigs or by buying merchandise at tpublic.com/toughpigs.